Greetings. In today's video, I made an owl. As in one of these. Like an owl. And I'm going to take you through the process of me making it, from the conception of the idea, from when I'm staging with reference pictures and what I want it to look like, all the way up to the finished product and painted. So let's get started. This is going to be a lot of pretty rapid fire things because this takes a long time and there's many iterations. The first thing I did was, well, I looked at reference pictures, just literally on Google Images, and I figured out what shape of a head I wanted. And then I figured out what I wanted the head to do. So this is the logic necessary for, first of all, the blinking of the eyes. So the first interval is 11 seconds, and then every 9 seconds after that, the owl will blink. And every other blink will be a double blink. So that one was a double blink, and then the next one will be a single blink, and then the one after that will be a double blink again. And you will be able to see this throughout the video. The other thing I wanted this owl to be able to do is, well, obviously turn its head, but for regular flying, you don't need to look all that far around yourself, right? This is generally the normal head motions of something that's looking forward because it is flying forward. However, I have steering hinges on the neck, and owls are known for being able to look behind themselves, essentially. Now, I can't do that because steering hinges only go to 90 degrees, and I didn't want to double or triple stack steering hinges because that would have created a whole bunch of problems. There's already enough problems with this because as it is mounted now, the body on which it is mounted is not nearly as wide as the body is going to be when I've finished building it out, and already it's colliding with the body. So that's a problem. Yeah, hinges in Trailmakers are not, and everything else in Trailmakers is not meant to be able to turn your head 180 degrees. There's obviously ways that you could do this. I also want it to be able to fly, right? I'm sacrificing some of the aesthetic value in order to gain in functionality as a proper flyer. It's not going to be an ornithopter, although I could possibly get it to be, but I preferred to add in thrusters and help to it to make it fly regularly. Now, the other thing I wanted to do is that, which is just funky and fun and happy. I just enjoy that. Second part is laying out how the body is gonna look. So I essentially, again, with reference images of owls and how generally they look proportionally, I take a look. I went on YouTube, I looked at slow-mo videos of owls flying, and I estimated how far away I wanted the head to be from the tip of the tail and how large the wingspan was gonna be. And at first, I just drew it out with a bunch of 1x4 blocks. Now, this was an estimate, and it was always going to start varying depending on which blocks I was placing where. So this is just measurements, and then you move on to how the wings are properly splayed out and detailed. Obviously, a lot of hinge work is going into this, like a lot of hinges everywhere in order to get the shape that I want, and on the tail as well. And then the other thing I'm figuring out at this point is how far to allow my tail to turn so that it's not colliding with the back tip of the wing when turning, when doing all of the animation things, so that essentially when the wings are flapping, the tail doesn't mess the flapping up. Forward from that, I have lifted the entire creation far above the ground so that I can start testing my flap animation. This is the point at which I've started color coding my logic so that it's easier to understand for me, and so that when I put it into the body of the creation, I don't lose the pieces. If you have them color coded and really evident when you condense them in and you're in the testing phase, I find it a lot easier to tune things when I know where the logic for them is. obviously. I've got my directional controls and I've got my flap. Here you can immediately see that the wing on the left, that the wing on the left is suffering from the issue where hinge strengths aren't consistent. And that plagues a lot of my builds because that's just bad. I need that gone. Anyway, speaking of wing animations, I have this, which is the stance for gliding, and that's both of the yellow blocks. And then I have my red blocks activate on space. But this one has a duration of 2.8, and this one has a delay of 2.8. Essentially, when this one finishes working, this one will take over. And as you can see, they switch from this set to this set, right? And the reason for this is the first 2 or 3 flaps I want to be slower and more deep, like proper wide flapping. Whereas when the owl has taken off and is at some speed, then the flapping will get quicker and less for going up and more for going forward. That's the plan, at least. Going from stage, whatever stage this is, to whatever stage this is, one thing to notice is that whereas here the wings are just planned out in their very rudimentary form, over here I've begun to fill them out with wedges and make sure that they have a proper wing shape. Instead of it just being straight up blocks, I've put in all of the wedges so that it's not so stark and square and blocky. From there forward, I've lifted the owl even further off the ground, and I've begun to devise how piston glitching all of the things into the body is going to work. I have my logic in here all settled in, and there's some hidden on the inside as well. I have my thrusters, and I have my piston glitch that's going to pull the entirety of that block upward into the seat area, basically, in order to create a more cohesive shape that doesn't have all of these exposed components. I hadn't figured out where all of the logic pieces went, but I took this place because I'd placed all my thrusters and I was pretty sure that that's exactly where the thrusters were going to end up. And now you can see it moves because it's thruster powered. So beyond that, I've taken the owl off the stand and I've given it yaw, roll, and pitch gyros. I've programmed all of the thrusters properly so that I can lift myself off the ground. In addition to this, the owl can now fold itself into a standing position, quote unquote standing position. I have a glass pipe at the bottom on a hinge that folds out to assist with this. In this configuration, you can point the head wherever you like. The owl can look at you and raise its eyebrows and lower its eyebrows. And it can blink, because that's a thing that my owl does. So this is essentially completed form. I've built out all of the blocks and filled in most of the gaps so that it's not just a skeleton of an owl, it's actually proper form. Then you take off and you repair it and pray to the Trailmakers gods that the hinges that you're using actually decide to work, and then they do, and you say thank you. So cool beans. Forward from that, we have the last iteration, which is very slightly drag glitched. There's not a lot of drag glitch here. There's still a lot of spaces. I didn't want this to be an extremely fast creation. It's an owl. It's not meant to be a terrifying fighter jet plane thing. It's just an owl. So I have a little bit of drag glitch just to get it above 300 kilometers an hour so that it doesn't take me literally till next century to get anywhere. And so that the winds on high seas don't affect me nearly as much. Yeah, this is essentially the last steps before the owl is complete. One thing I did is I turned these 2 wedges to glass and then decaled over them so that I can use a camera to see out of the front of my head. Now, that camera isn't very useful and it's really shaky. However, it's fine. I'll deal with it. I'll probably never use it. And just as a little tidbit, these two paddles are held by these two pipe pieces that are also glass. So the glass here is these two pipe pieces, the pipe that acts as a stand for the owl, these two wedges that hold the flat connectors, and this pipe piece that holds the beak on. That's all of the glass tricks. And then as for the lanterns, these are just regular ship lanterns on which I have decaled with a target shape. And I've achieved a much more circular eye so that it looks more like an owl's eye and less like a lantern. And finally, we can move on to the finished product. Yeah, I did some paint work, I did some decal work, decided to paint the wings blood red. Well, a very, very dark red. Yeah, eyes are orange. It still has the ability to do the eyebrow things. It's still drag glitched, as you can see. The top part is a very dark coloration, whereas the bottom part of the body is a lot lighter, as most animals tend to be. And there's one exposed logic gate, but I hope you can forgive me. Oh, the wings didn't do the thing where they die. This time the wings are okay. Okay, good. Awesome. And yeah, this is the owl. It can just hover in place, just like the kestrel. It just looks at you from high above. It can furrow its eyebrows at you. I don't know which one is the happier or the sadder stance. It does the blinking because yes. One very interesting thing, as I was tuning this, I learned that I would have to adjust how far forward the tips of the wings are spread. So if I press 1, you can see the wing tips move forward and back. And it's far less noticeable because it's a smaller percentage, but when I press space, it does that as well. And that helps with the distribution of my lift forward to back, which means that when I'm just regular gliding, I have slightly backward lift and the owl will tend to dive. Whereas when I'm flying, the lift is completely level and I'm basically going flat, or as flat as I could possibly go anyway, while flapping my wings. And then when I press 1 and the wings come all the way forward, I have a lot of front lift. And so I will slowly pitch up, very slowly. And that's for regular gliding. If I don't want to be holding space, I can just glide. It goes a lot slower, like half speed, but yeah, it can do that. So yeah, that's the owl. I'm really happy with it. Things to talk about, things to note, other than the glass, is that the bottom of the wings, I put this decal on them, which I'm really happy with. It's a really small detail, but I'm quite happy with how it turned out, and the top of the wings are more dark. So just going with the theme of the underneath of the wings is brighter, the underneath of the creature is brighter than the top of the creature. And yeah, that's about it. That's my owl. I hope you liked it. I hope you've enjoyed. And I have a few clips of me flying it around on various maps.